The golden October sun was setting over the historic Savannah estate, bathing the wedding in perfect light, until a whisper of scandal walked onto the lawn in a white lace dress. Just moments before, the atmosphere had been nothing short of a southern fairy tale. The ancient live oaks, draped heavily in Spanish moss, created a natural cathedral over the guests, while a string quartet played a soft, lilting version of Pachelbel's canon that seemed to float on the crisp autumn breeze. Clara stood near the edge of the veranda, her hand resting nervously on the railing. In her modest, elegant silk gown, she looked every bit the radiant bride, yet her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She watched the guests mingling below, women in pearls and pastels, men in seersucker and linen suits, and felt that familiar pang of imposter syndrome. This was the Hamilton estate, a place where lineage was discussed as casually as the weather, and she was Clara, the doctor who had fought for every scrap of success she had, far away from this world of inherited ease. Robert appeared beside her, his presence warm and grounding. He reached out, covering her hand with his own, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "Stop thinking so loud," he teased gently, leaning in to kiss her temple. "They love you, Clara. And even if they didn't, it wouldn't matter. Today is about us." He looked at her with such undisguised adoration that for a moment, the weight of the Hamilton legacy felt lighter. "I'm just waiting for someone to wake me up," Clara whispered, managing a smile. "You belong here," Robert said firmly, his blue eyes serious. "You belong anywhere you choose to be." But the tranquility of the moment was fragile. As the reception officially began on the sprawling lawn, and guests accepted crystal flutes of champagne and glasses of sweet tea, a subtle shift occurred in the crowd. It started near the main gate, a ripple of hushed gasps that spread inward like a wave. The string quartet seemed to falter for a split second before recovering. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned, and eyes widened behind designer sunglasses. Striding across the manicured grass was Elena. She hadn't RSVP'd, and she certainly hadn't been invited, but she walked with the terrifying confidence of a woman who believed the world revolved around her. The audacity of her entrance wasn't just in her arrival, it was in her attire. She was wearing a floor-length, intricate lace gown that was unmistakably, aggressively white. In the unspoken rulebook of Southern etiquette, this was a declaration of war. She breezed past the security detail, flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and made a direct line for the couple. The crowd parted for her, not out of respect, but out of sheer, paralyzed shock. Clara felt Robert stiffen beside her, his grip on her hand tightening protectively. Elena didn't look at the groom, nor did she acknowledge the gasps of the elderly socialites she passed. Her gaze was locked entirely on Clara. She stopped right in front of the bride, looked her up and down with a smirk that was sharp enough to cut glass, and said loudly, "Bold choice of venue, considering you don't look like you belong on this side of the serving table." The audacity! If you are already rooting for Clara and find this story valuable so far, please drop the number 8 in the comments below to let me know you're watching with us. And if you haven't joined our family yet, I highly recommend you subscribe to Black King and hit that notification bell right now so you never miss a moment of justice. Your support is what drives us to keep creating powerful content that informs and inspires. Now, let's get back to the wedding and see what happens next. In the South, insults are often wrapped in politeness. But what Elena was doing wasn't polite. It was a strategic demolition of Clara's reputation. The reception had moved indoors to the grand ballroom, a space that felt less like a party venue and more like a museum of high expectations. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars dripped light onto tables set with heavy silver and fine china, while heavy velvet drapes shut out the modern world. Here, under the watchful oil portraits of Hamilton ancestors, Elena began her real work. She didn't scream or shout. Instead, she moved like a viper through the crowd, whispering into the ears of the most influential matrons. Her target was clear: Grandma Margaret, the family matriarch who sat on a high-backed velvet chair like a queen on her throne. Elena leaned in close, her voice dripping with faux concern. "I heard she's drowning in student loans, Margaret," Elena murmured, swirling her wine. "They say she trapped Robert just to pay off her debts. It's tragic, really, seeing a Hamilton reduced to a financial lifeline." Margaret listened, her face a mask of stone, her gnarled hands resting heavily on the silver head of her cane. She offered no nod, no smile, which Elena arrogantly interpreted as quiet agreement. Meanwhile, near the buffet line, the atmosphere was tense for different reasons. A young waiter, clearly terrified by the grandeur of the event and the stern faces of the guests, was rushing to refill a platter of shrimp and grits. His foot caught on the edge of a thick Persian rug. The tray went flying. Porcelain shattered against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot, and shrimp covered in rich gravy splattered onto the pristine hem of a nearby tablecloth. The room gasped. Elena, who was standing nearby, recoiled as if the boy had thrown acid. "Disgusting," she hissed, loudly enough to humiliate him further. "Can't they hire competent help anymore?" The boy looked ready to cry, freezing in panic as the head of catering marched over to reprimand him. But before the manager could say a word, Clara was there. She didn't hesitate. Ignoring her expensive silk gown, she dropped to her knees right in the middle of the mess. "It's okay," she said softly, her voice calm and authoritative, the same voice she used to soothe frightened children at her clinic. "Are you burned?" That gravy was hot. She checked the boy's hands with professional efficiency, completely unbothered by the stains spreading on her own dress. She helped him pick up the larger shards of china, whispering reassurances that kept him from crumbling into tears. Elena saw her opportunity. She turned back to Grandma Margaret, a cruel smile playing on her lips, and pointed a manicured finger at the bride on the floor. "Look at her," Elena laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. "See? She's cleaning." "That's instinct, Margaret. You can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the girl. Once a servant, always a servant." Grandma Margaret didn't laugh. Instead, she tapped her cane sharply on the floor, her steel-gray eyes locking onto Clara with an unreadable expression. The clinking of silverware on fine china stopped instantly. Silence in a dining hall this crowded usually meant disaster was looming. Just seconds ago, the room had been filled with polite laughter following the best man's toast, but the air had suddenly grown thick enough to choke on. Margaret's unreadable look from earlier had made everyone nervous, planting a seed of unease that permeated the dinner service. But it was Elena's impatience that would finally break the tension. Robert had just taken the microphone to thank his guests. He looked handsome in the warm candlelight, his hand resting reassuringly on Clara's shoulder as she sat beside him. "To us," he had started, "community isn't just about where you live, it's about how you love." It was a beautiful sentiment, one that softened the hardened faces of even the most skeptical relatives. But before he could finish his thought, a sharp, aggressive sound cut through his words. Clink, clink, clink. Elena was standing at a table near the front, tapping her dessert spoon against her crystal wine glass with violent persistence. She swayed slightly, her eyes bright with a dangerous mix of expensive Merlot and unchecked jealousy. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice slurring just enough to be noticeable. "I think we skipped the most important toast. The truth toast." Ignoring the horrified whispers of the guests around her, Elena stumbled up to the head table. She didn't ask for the microphone. She snatched it from the MC's hand with a grip that turned her knuckles white. Robert moved to intercept her, but Elena was quicker, holding up a hand to stop him. "Sit down, Robbie. Let an old friend speak." She turned to the crowd, flashing a smile that looked more like a snarl. "You know, Robert is too polite to say it, but we all know this marriage isn't a romance. It's a charity project. He just loves saving people, doesn't he?" Clara stiffened, her face draining of color, but she kept her chin high, refusing to look away. Elena paced in front of the bride, gesturing wildly with her wine glass, sloshing red liquid dangerously close to the white tablecloths. "I mean, look at this," Elena sneered, sweeping her arm to encompass the room. "The history, the legacy, the bloodline. And then look at her. We're pretending this is Cinderella, but let's be honest. It's just a tragedy waiting to happen. You don't mix silk with burlap and expect it to hold." She leaned into the microphone, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial, venomous whisper that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. "He's doing a good deed, picking you up out of the gutter, honey. But don't mistake pity for love." The shock in the room was palpable, a physical weight pressing down on every chest. Elena, mistaking the silence for agreement, laughed, a cold, hollow sound. She turned to the crowd, her voice dripping with venom. Come on, raise your glasses if you agree that a gold digger from the projects has no business carrying the Hamilton name. The absolute audacity. If you are still watching and finding these details valuable, please drop the number 8 in the comments below to let me know you're standing with Clara. And if you haven't joined us yet, I highly recommend you subscribe to Black King and turn on the bell so you don't miss the justice that is about to be served. Your support helps us continue creating great content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's continue to the reaction. Elena's venomous words hung in the air, but instead of the applause she expected, a deafening, awkward silence blanketed the entire dining hall. She stood there, arm raised with her wine glass, waiting for the chorus of agreement, but the only sound was the distant hum of the air conditioning and the sharp intake of breath from 200 horrified guests. She had asked the crowd to agree that Clara didn't belong, but she underestimated the integrity of the guests and the patience of the groom. For a long, agonizing moment, nobody moved. The elite of Savannah, usually so quick to judge, looked down at their plates or exchanged glances of pure second-hand embarrassment. Elena's smile began to falter, the corners twitching as the reality of her isolation set in. She lowered her glass slightly, looking around with a desperate confusion. What? She laughed nervously, the sound shrill. Are we really going to pretend I'm wrong? Robert stood up slowly. He didn't slam the table. He didn't shout. He moved with the terrifying calm of a man who has already won the war before the first shot is fired. He stepped around the table and walked up to Elena. Up close, the difference in their stature was stark. Robert, grounded and imposing. Elena, swaying and frantic. He reached out and gently took the microphone from her hand. She didn't fight him. She was too stunned by the cold fury radiating from him. I apologize to everyone for this interruption, Robert said, his voice level but carrying to the back of the room without effort. My wife and I invited you here to celebrate love, not to witness a breakdown. He then turned his back to the crowd, blocking Elena's view of the audience, forcing her to look only at him. You wanted to talk about financial worth and pedigree, Elena? You wanted to discuss who can afford to be here and who is a charity case. Fine. Let's look at the numbers. Elena rolled her eyes, crossing her arms over her lace dress. Oh, please, Robert. Don't try to defend her with your checkbook. We all know you bought her way in. I'm not talking about my checkbook, Robert said, his voice dropping an octave, deadly serious. He reached into the inner pocket of his tuxedo jacket. The room leaned in, captivated. He pulled out a folded legal document, the paper crisp and stark white against his black suit. It wasn't a speech, it was a formal notice. My assistant handed this to me right before we walked in. We didn't want to ruin the mood, but since you insist on discussing finances publicly, I think transparency is fair. He unfolded the paper and held it up, his voice cutting through the room like a knife, because according to this foreclosure notice, the only person here who can't afford their lifestyle is you. The color drained from Elena's face so fast she looked like a ghost in her white dress. She recognized the bank logo on the paper immediately. It wasn't a generic bank statement. It was a specific letterhead from the Savannah Community Credit Union, a local institution known for supporting struggling families. Elena's hand flew to her mouth, her previous arrogance evaporating into pure panic. Where did you get that? She whispered, her voice trembling. That's private financial information. It is, Robert agreed, his voice calm but projecting to every corner of the silent room. And normally I wouldn't have access to it. But since you decided to make my wife's worth a topic of public debate, I think context is important. He held the paper out so the nearby tables could see the bold red stamps marked overdue. Your family's construction business has been insolvent for 6 months, Elena. You're not living on old money. You're living on borrowed time. This dress, the car you drove here in, it's all credit that was declined this morning. Elena looked like she wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. That's a temporary cash flow issue, she stammered, looking around for sympathy but finding none. It was a foreclosure, Robert corrected sharply. Your parents were days away from losing their estate. But last week, the foreclosure was halted. An extension was granted. Do you know who authorized that mercy, Elena? He pointed to the bottom of the document. Read the signature of the board chairwoman. Elena squinted at the paper, and her eyes went wide with disbelief. No, she breathed. That's impossible. Dr. Clara Hamilton. Robert read aloud. My wife isn't just a pediatrician, Elena. She founded this credit union 5 years ago to help local families avoid predatory lenders. When your family's file crossed her desk, she didn't see an enemy. She saw an elderly couple in trouble, and she approved the extension out of kindness. She saved your parents' home, Elena, at the very same time you were planning to come here and humiliate her. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Clara sat quietly, her expression one of grace, not triumph, which only made Elena look smaller. Suddenly, a sharp thud echoed on the marble floor. Grandma Margaret had stood up. She banged her cane once more for attention, her face set in a line of absolute authority. She looked at Elena with a mixture of pity and disdain. You have come into my house, Margaret said, her voice shaking with suppressed anger, and insulted the woman who puts food on your table. It seems we have only one person here with no class, and she is wearing a white dress to another woman's wedding. Leave. Now. Elena looked around for an ally, but finding only disgusted stares, she turned and fled the hall, the sound of her heels clicking on the marble floor the only noise in the room. The heavy oak doors slammed shut behind Elena, and the tension in the room broke like a fever, replaced by a collective sigh of relief. For a second, no one moved, as if waiting to see if the storm would return. Then, slowly, the murmur of conversation resumed, but the tone had changed completely. It wasn't the polite, guarded chatter of a high society gathering anymore. It was softer, humbler, stripped of the pretense that Elena had tried so hard to enforce. Robert turned to Clara, his eyes filled with a pained apology. I am so sorry, he whispered, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. She had no right to do that to you on our wedding day. Clara smiled, reaching up to straighten his lapel, her touch steadying him. She didn't ruin the day, Robert, she said softly, looking him in the eye. She clarified it. Now everyone knows exactly who we are, and more importantly, who we aren't. Before Robert could respond, the crowd parted. Grandma Margaret was approaching the head table. The cane that had once seemed like a weapon now just looked like a support for a woman who had seen too much pride destroy too many families. She stopped in front of Clara. The room held its breath again, but this time, there was no fear. Margaret didn't offer a handshake. Instead, to the shock of everyone watching, she pulled Clara into a stiff but genuine embrace. You have more grace in your little finger than that girl had in her whole life, Margaret said, her voice loud enough for the nearby tables to hear clearly. She pulled back, patting Clara's cheek with a withered hand. I may be old, but I know quality when I see it. Welcome to the family, my dear. Truly. The band, sensing the shift, struck up the opening notes of Etta James's at last. Robert bowed theatrically, offering his hand to his wife. As they moved to the dance floor, the applause that followed wasn't polite obligation. It was thunderous and real. Guests were wiping tears, smiling and nodding in approval. As they swayed to the music, surrounded by the warmth of the candlelight and the people who finally accepted them, Clara rested her head on Robert's shoulder. We won't foreclose on her parents, right? She whispered. Robert chuckled, the sound vibrating against her chest. That's up to you, boss. It's your bank. But I know you won't. Clara smiled, closing her eyes. She wouldn't. Because victory wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about proving you were better than they ever imagined. As the camera pans out to the weeping willows swaying in the moonlight, the narrator concludes, status isn't about what you wear or where you're born. It's about how you treat people when they have nothing to offer you.